and Happy New Year! Sorry if the lighting is really terrible. It is so dark and gloomy outside today, but I really wanted to film, get this edited and uploaded today. It's the end of the year, which means it's time for one of my favorite videos, which is my favorite books of 2018. For I think the first time, maybe ever, I don't have these in any particular order. I'm just going off the order that I read them throughout the year. Not sure exactly how many I have, somewhere around 15. I read 105 books this year, which is crazy. So let's get into this so this video isn't 5 years long. My first favorite is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. Wish I could get the sun today. This is a book about two teenagers who are twins. The book takes place during two different timelines and it flips back and forth between them, and it basically tells the story of how they grew apart. This is just one of the best books I've ever read, not just this year, but ever. It's so absolutely gorgeous. The writing is so subtle, yet so impactful. Jandy Nelson is definitely one of my new favorite authors of all time. If you haven't read this book, you absolutely have to, because it was just perfect. I loved it so much. It won awards for a reason. Next is And I Darken by Kiersten White, and really the whole series, because I read the whole series this year. This is a Vlad the Impaler retelling where Vlad is a woman named Lotta. In the first book, we follow her and her brother Radu as they are growing up. I did not expect to fall in love with this book at all. In fact, I wasn't even gonna read it until one of my very best friends, Miss Witty Novels herself, told me that I had to read it, and she was so right. The characters in this series are just absolutely incredibly written. Radu is this sweet, soft boy, where Lotta is this strong, fierce, fearless woman, and they contrast yet complement each other so well, and it's just impossible not to fall in love with them. They're some of my new favorite characters of all time. Literally, the plot itself could have been about anything because I just love these characters so much. Next, we have The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. This is a nonfiction memoir about Jeanette Walls. Obviously, it's a memoir. She wrote about her life, basically the way her family lived. It was unconventional, to say the least. Her family was so dysfunctional, and where she was able to bring herself and how resilient she was just absolutely incredible to me. Absolutely recommend listening to this on audiobook if you check it out, because it's so great to hear her reading her story. Thinking of the beginning of the story to the end of the story, how much she goes through, how much she handles, and where she brings herself up to anyway, it was absolutely wonderful. Next, we have Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. This is about a girl named Safi who is a truth witch, which basically means she has the power to tell when people are lying. We follow her and her thread sister Izult as they basically try to keep Safi safe because her power is very rare and very demanded by other people for obvious reasons. What I loved most about this book is the female friendship between Safi and Izult. They are not just friends, they are sisters, and it is so heartwarming. They are both so badass and they would both do absolutely anything for each other, and I just love it so much. As I said, I'm a character-based reader, and these two as characters were so amazing to read about. Next, I have The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. It's honestly hard to give a plot description for this, but it's essentially about these three teenagers who all end up coming together. One of them is Alex, who we learn went and got revenge for her sister's rapist and murderer, who did not get charged, and doing this kind of released this darkness inside of her. So she's kind of kept to herself until one day these other two people end up getting closer to her, and it just leads them all on a very crazy, wild, dark path. This was just so powerful. It touches on a lot of important topics like rape culture. It's definitely a darker contemporary, but I really enjoyed it. I just thought it was so powerful. It had me in tears at times. Obviously a trigger warning for rape, but if you're okay reading about those topics, I would highly recommend this one. Next, I have Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. This, as you might have guessed, follows Josh and Hazel. They originally met in college, but now, years after, they have reunited when Hazel realized that Josh is the brother of one of her best friends. So essentially, they end up wanting to find romances for each other that aren't the two of them, and so they go on a series of different dates with people that they have picked out for the other person. I loved this romance. It was so sweet. Hazel is honestly just from New Girl reincarnated. Josh Josh is so sweet, so wonderful. The way it all plays out is just so wonderfully written. This was my first Christina Lauren book, but it will not be my last. Next is The Opposite of Loneliness by Marina Keegan. This is a collection of essays by Yale graduate Marina Keegan, who tragically died days after her graduation. She wanted to be a writer and she worked on the school's newspaper, so there is a collection of fiction, nonfiction, and things she wrote for the paper. These essays are all so amazing. The title essay, The Opposite of Loneliness, talks about the feeling of graduating college and that strange bubbly feeling that you get, and it just made me cry. Her fiction was so amazing. I wish we could have gotten more from her. She would have been such an amazing author one day, I'm sure of it. I mean, obviously she is an author, but I would have loved to see her go on to write more books because she's just an incredible writer, and I highly recommend you check this out. Obviously I recommend all these books, but I think everyone should give this one a shot. Next we have The Darkest Legacy by Alexandra Bracken. I have it on the shelf back there, but it's under a bunch of books and I don't feel like grabbing it. This is the 4th installment of the Darkest Minds series. It's kind of more of a spin-off because it follows one of the characters from the original series rather than Ruby again. This one follows Zoo, and I didn't realize I needed this story until I read it. Having Zoo take her shot at the main role, telling us her story, was so incredible, and I absolutely loved the new characters that Alexandra Bracken has brought into this world. Zoo and her friends were so lovely to read about. I loved seeing how this world is reconstructing itself after the events of In the Afterlight. I don't want to get into too much more because obviously if you haven't read The Darkest Minds, it would obviously spoil the end of that series. I highly recommend both of these. It was absolutely lovely returning to this world. Next we have Beartown by Friedrich Bachmann. This was such an unexpected surprise and I loved it so much. It essentially follows a small town where hockey is everything. I really like what it says on the back cover here. It says, "This is a story about a town and a game, but even more about loyalty, commitment, and the responsibilities of friendship. The people we disappoint even though we love them, and the decisions we make every day that come to define us." Also, I feel like I should read you the first page. It's very short, but it hooks you so much. "Late one evening toward the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead, and pulled the trigger. This is the story of how we got there." If that doesn't leave you wanting to read this, I don't know what else will. Next we have another kind of surprise, but it's The Awakening by Kate Chopin. I actually read this for class, and so I didn't anticipate it being a new favorite of all time, but it's a new favorite of all time. The Awakening is about this woman who discovers her own awakening, where she realizes the life that she has is not the one she wants. She doesn't want to just be a wife that has to answer calls, doesn't want to just be a mother. She wants more. Oh no, my battery. It's absolutely beautifully told. If you're worried about it because it's a classic, I just think you should totally go into it. It left me just like wanting to sob and jump in the ocean and cry and just, oh. It left me with so many emotions. It was so good. Next, we have Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. This was incredible. The book begins where there's this fire and everyone's like, what's going on? And then it expertly weaves its way backwards, telling how these two different families intertwine, interconnected, and how that led to the events where they currently are now with this house on fire. Celeste Ng just has a way of writing that really amazes me. She does everything so subtly and so simply, yet it leaves you mind blown once everything comes together. I just absolutely love her writing. I could also put Everything I Never Told You on this list because it was also very close to a 5-star. She is just one of my new favorite writers. I think she tells a story so well. She fleshes out her characters so well. Again, character-based reader, character-based stories. I'm gonna love them. If you haven't checked out any of her work yet, you need to get on it. Next, and I think this is gonna be on a lot of people's lists, is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the story of an old movie starlet who decides to tell her story for the very first time, no holding back, all guns a-blazing. She picks this kind of more unknown, discreet journalist, and the journalist is like, why'd you pick me? And Evelyn's like, just don't worry about it, tell my story. I love good characters, and I love anything to do with the film industry, so this was perfect for me. Evelyn as a character was so headstrong and so amazing. I also really loved Monique, the journalist. I loved how Evelyn really rubbed off on her and how they lifted each other up as women. It's great. It's amazing. Everyone's talking about it for a reason. Okay, charge the camera for a minute. We gotta hurry. Ooh, does that help or does that not good. Next, I have A Dangerous Fortune by Ken Follett. Hard to really narrow this down, but essentially this story follows this family who owns this bank, so they're, you know, businessmen, whatever. It starts off with these boys at school and something fishy happens, some tomfoolery, some lying, and this event that happens at this school kind of allows everything else to happen throughout the rest of the book because we jump from year to year. There's so much drama between the family, between people surrounding who get involved with them. It's just a story of very intricate character relationships. You see why I liked it, and how the choices that these people are making are affecting not only themselves, but a whole lot of other people. It has one of the best female villains that I have read in a long time. She was one of those villains where you know she's doing horrible things, but it's so hard not to root for her because she does them so well. It just really took me by surprise. And if you're up for taking a risk on an older book that you probably never heard of, you know, I would recommend this one. Next, I have The Lies We Told by Camila Way. This is a psychological thriller starring a girl named Clara. We follow her story in the present, 2017, and another in the past, in the 80s. The present storyline focuses on Clara's boyfriend who has gone missing. The police really don't know what happened to him, so Clara starts investigating her boyfriend's past to see if there's anybody who is out to get him. And the storyline in the past focuses on this woman who has always just wanted to be a mother, and when she finally gets that opportunity, her daughter is not exactly what she expected. It was such a nail-biter wondering how these two stories were going to collide. You knew that they were going to. I was never able to guess how they were connected or anything really that went on in this book. It was definitely one of my favorite thrillers that I read of the year. It was so twisted, it kept me on the edge of my seat. I did not want to put it down. I read it in like 2 sittings. I love when a thriller is able to surprise me, and this one definitely did that. And finally, the last book, which I literally just finished last night and is the reason I don't film this until as late as I possibly can in the year, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This follows 2 characters, Lucy and Josh, who work together at a publishing house, and they freaking hate each other. So it's an enemies to lovers story that is just so amazingly well written. Sally Thorne just has all these little details that make me so happy and get my heart going. They were just holding hands at one point and I was like, oh my god, it's so good. This also managed to pull off quirky without being too overly cheesy or annoying, which many books fail at. This was just so fun and it had me going, man, I want a boyfriend. And that is all for my favorites of 2018. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what your favorite book of 2018 is because maybe I need to add it to my 2019 TBR. I'll see you guys in my next video.